Black billionaire laughed. Out of exclusive club that same night, he becomes the owner. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Black billionaire laughed. Out of exclusive club that same night, he becomes the owner. You can't be serious. This club has a dress code. The words landed like a slap across velvet. Laughter followed sharp, rehearsed, the kind that feeds on shame. At 9:42 p.m., inside the Beaumont Club, the air was low and golden. Crystal glasses clinked, a jazz quartet played near the bar, and waiters glided between tables like clockwork. Every detail screamed exclusivity except the man standing at the entrance. Elijah Cross, 48, billionaire investor. Quiet, deliberate, invisible by choice tonight. Dark jeans, black turtleneck, no watch, no entourage, only calm. The doorman's smirk widened. Sir, this is a members-only establishment. Elijah didn't answer. He just presented his card. The man glanced at it, then laughed again. This is cute. We don't do novelty prints here. Behind him, murmurs rose low, judgmental. A woman at the bar whispered, "He's lost." A man in a tailored suit replied, "Or testing his luck." Elijah's eyes didn't waver. He'd seen this before at 16, outside a country club his father had once painted. Same tone, same cold dismissal, only the wallpaper changed. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Elijah. The doorman snapped his fingers for security. Escort him out. 2 guards approached, polished shoes whispering across marble. Elijah Cross, he said softly, reservation under my name. The manager, a man with salt gray hair and an overfed ego, approached with a fake smile. You must be mistaken, mister? Cross, Elijah replied. The name didn't register. Or maybe it did, and that was worse. The guards stepped closer. One gestured toward the door. Please don't make a scene. Elijah exhaled. You already made it. Then he turned, calm as still water, and walked out. Outside, the night wind carried laughter from inside, thin and brittle. He stood beneath the club's glowing crest, the gold letters shimmering like a dare. He pulled out his phone, typed a single message. By the Beaumont. Tonight. Somewhere across town, his legal team stirred awake. In that moment, the insult became paperwork, and laughter turned into leverage. Because Elijah Cross didn't shout, he didn't threaten. He simply made ownership his answer. The Beaumont sat on Fifth Avenue like a crown carved from arrogance glass, brass, and old money. Outside, black cars idled under the soft drizzle of October rain. Inside, the hum of privilege was almost musical laughter in low tones, champagne flutes clinking, a pianist drifting through something too elegant to have a name. Elijah Cross had walked through hundreds of doors more expensive than this. But tonight wasn't about comfort. It was about clarity. He came alone. No press, no handlers, not even security. Just the kind of confidence that makes people wonder who you are until they decide who you're not. He signed the guest ledger himself. The pen was gold-tipped, heavy, performative. The hostess hesitated, eyes flicking over his jeans, his shoes, the absence of flash. Your name, sir? Elijah Cross, he said evenly. Her smile faltered, just enough to reveal the training behind it. One moment, please. That moment stretched, whispered, multiplied. Across the room, someone laughed too loudly, the kind of laugh that fills silence because truth is uncomfortable. The manager emerged, gray hair, cufflinks catching the light. Mr. Cross, I'm afraid you're not listed as a member. Perhaps you're looking for the public lounge? Public, that word, spoken in this place, meant poor. It meant invisible. He didn't answer. He simply looked at the man the way still water looks at a storm, reflective, unimpressed. The hostess cleared her throat. Sir, this is a private institution. Members only. I understand, Elijah said quietly. He placed a small leather card holder on the counter. It gleamed under the light. The manager glanced down and froze. Inside was a platinum invitation from the Beaumont itself addressed to him. But habit is louder than evidence. The man barely looked. This must be a mistake. Maybe, Elijah said. Or maybe it's a test. Behind them, two guards shifted their stance, waiting for a nod. They never got one, not yet, because even as the tension thickened, Elijah's calm refused to break. He thought of his father, the house painter who once stood outside another club, hands cracked, dignity intact. "They'll never see you," his father had said, "until you make them look." That sentence had built an empire. Now it returned, echoing between the chandeliers and the arrogance. A waiter brushed past, murmuring, "They always try to sneak in." Elijah heard it. He let it sit. Every insult here was currency. He was just waiting for the market to open. The manager's voice rose, brittle with certainty. "I'll have to ask you to leave." Elijah nodded once, slow. "You already did." He turned, walked back toward the door, and every eye followed him not because he was loud, but because he didn't need to be. Outside, the rain had stopped. He looked up at the glowing crest above the entrance, the Beaumont Club, letters shining like a verdict. He slipped his hands into his pockets, the city lights reflecting off the wet pavement. Somewhere behind him, laughter swelled again, muffled by walls of wealth and ignorance. It didn't matter, because what they thought was an exit was only the beginning. By 10:07 p.m., the city had already begun to bend toward him. A phone rang in a penthouse office 50 blocks away, the kind of place where decisions reshaped skylines. "Midnight acquisition?" his attorney asked. Half asleep, half awake, Elijah's voice came steady through the speaker. "Full purchase, no delay." Of the club?" "Of the building," Elijah said. "And everyone inside will learn before sunrise who really pays the bills." He hung up without another word. On the sidewalk outside the Beaumont, traffic shimmered by in silver streaks. The laughter from inside had dulled to a hum, faint, smug, forgettable. They didn't know yet that humiliation had just changed ownership. He stepped into a waiting sedan, matte black, anonymous. No driver spoke. No music played, only the pulse of the city through tinted glass. He watched the building fade in the mirror until its gold crest dissolved into rainlight. He didn't smile. Not yet. 23 minutes later, he was home, an entire floor of glass and quiet above Central Park. The skyline blinked below like data points in a deal he already controlled. He removed his coat, set his phone on the table, and poured a single measure of bourbon. The silence was heavy, the kind that tastes like memory. He remembered another night, another door, 25 years ago. A rooftop fundraiser, black tie only, where he'd shown up in a Navy suit and was told he'd come to the wrong event. He had gone home, furious but silent, and built an investment fund so large that same charity begged him for support a decade later. He'd written the check, but never attended the gala again. Tonight felt familiar. Only now, silence wasn't retreat, it was artillery. The phone buzzed once. Then again. Carla, his chief of staff, voice crisp as cut glass. "We've confirmed ownership transfer is possible tonight. Sellers desperate, liquidity tight. You'll have controlling interest by dawn." Elijah leaned back. "Make it public at sunrise. You want the press involved?" He paused. "No, just the members." Carla exhaled, a soft laugh beneath her professionalism. "Understood. Do you want security present when you return?" He looked out the window down at the endless grid of light and ambition. "No need. I built this city to handle me." She smiled through the line. "Then I'll see you at 7. He ended the call. For a moment, the silence returned, patient, electric. He opened the blinds wider, letting the city spill in. Somewhere, the same jazz melody that played in the club drifted faintly from a car below. The sound didn't sting this time. It steadied him. On his desk, the club's invitation card still lay open, embossed lettering, self-importance captured in ink. He picked it up, turned it over, and wrote 2 words on the back. Corrected ownership. Then he slipped it into his pocket. Outside, a storm was moving in slow, heavy, perfect. By the time the first thunder cracked, the Beaumont's future would already belong to him. Inside that club, people were still laughing, unaware that their world had just been sold. And somewhere between the rain and the skyline, Elijah Cross smiled for the first time that night. Not out of revenge, but recognition. The system had repeated itself one time too many, and this time, the answer had a deed attached. The next evening, the Beaumont looked exactly as it always had, chandelier light spilling like honey, tuxedos gliding through the lobby, laughter rehearsed to perfection. Except tonight, the man they'd laughed out 24 hours earlier was back. Same jeans, same black turtleneck, same calm, A different silence followed him in. It wasn't disbelief. It was instinct. The body's way of knowing power has entered the room before the mind catches up. The doorman froze. The same one who'd smirked yesterday, his confidence now trembling under a polite smile. "Good evening, sir. Are you—" "I'm expected," Elijah said quietly. No edge, no anger, just inevitability. He handed the man the same black card, the one that had been mocked for looking fake. This time, the scanner blinked green. "Welcome back, Mr. Cross," the doorman murmured. His voice cracked on the name. Inside, conversation faltered in waves. People who'd laughed were now whispering. People who'd watched were suddenly fascinated by their drinks. At the bar, the manager turned, eyes widening. "Mr. Cross, Elijah nodded once. "You remember my name now." Before the man could answer, Carla entered crisp suit, silver tablet in hand, a quiet storm behind her eyes. "Everything's confirmed," she said. The manager blinked. "Confirmed?" Elijah didn't look at him. "Ownership transfer. Effective this morning." He stepped closer, voice still soft but heavy as a gavel. "You don't work for the club anymore, Mr. Jensen. You work for me." The pianist stopped playing. The note hung midair, unanswered. In the corner, two members whispered, "He bought it? The whole building?" Carla's tone carried across the room like a verdict. Every square foot, Jensen's mouth opened, searching for apology or escape. None came. Elijah's gaze stayed level. "Yesterday, you questioned who I was. Tonight, you'll remember who you serve." He turned to the room, not loud, but clear enough to cut through every expensive breath. "I'm not here for revenge," he said. "I'm here for correction." A waiter dropped a glass. It shattered like punctuation. Elijah didn't flinch. "Policy," he continued, "isn't the problem. Perception is. You don't need new rules here, you need new eyes." Someone near the bar started clapping. It wasn't mockery this time. It spread hesitant, then certain. Carla handed him a folder. "Staff restructuring draft, ready for review." He took it without looking down. "Begin tonight," Jensen stammered. "You can't just—" Elijah cut him off with one word. "Done." Security appeared at the doorway, the same two guards who'd escorted him out. They looked unsure now, caught between obedience and guilt. He met their eyes. "Gentlemen, no one's being removed tonight. Not like that, but you might want to help Mr. Jensen find the exit." They nodded slowly. Jensen's protest melted into silence. His steps across the marble echoed longer than any applause. The room exhaled. Elijah glanced around at faces that now smiled too easily, voices that trembled with forced respect. He didn't smile back. He looked up at the chandelier, the same one that had shimmered above their laughter last night. Now, its light seemed colder. He whispered, just loud enough for Carla to hear, "Same lights, different truth." Outside, the rain started again, soft, deliberate, cleansing. Carla said quietly, "They'll never forget this." Elijah turned toward the door. "Good, but not because I embarrassed them." He paused, hand on the brass handle. "Because I stayed calm." Then he walked out, leaving silence to finish the sentence for him. By morning, the story had already spread. Not online, Elijah had made sure of that, but through the city's quiet channels of wealth and gossip. No one posted a video. No one needed to. Whispers travel faster when people are afraid of being next. At 9 a.m., the Beaumont's boardroom glowed with early sunlight. The table, 12 feet of polished oak, had seen decades of arrogance. Today, it would meet its match. Carla stood at the far end, tablet ready. 3 senior partners sat opposite Elijah, their expressions a mix of curiosity and damage control. They'd heard the rumors that a black billionaire had bought their fortress overnight. They just didn't want to believe it. "Mr. Cross," said one, clearing his throat, "we understand there's been a misunderstanding." Empersenton, Elijah leaned back in his chair. "You're right about one thing. It was a misunderstanding, just not mine." Another partner, an older man with a blue tie that screamed legacy, tried to smile. "You have to see it from our side. The Beaumont has a reputation to maintain." Elijah cut him off gently. "You mean an illusion." And yesterday, it cracked. The room stiffened. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Silence was the most expensive sound in that room. Carla slid a document across the table. Transfer records, corporate ownership, new compliance policies all finalized. The partners glanced down. One of them swallowed hard. "Effective immediately?" Carla nodded. "As of 7:12 a.m., The Beaumont Building and Club operate under Cross Holdings International. The oldest man, silver-haired, pride bruised, leaned forward. May I ask, why? Elijah studied him. Because you laughed. He let the words rest. No embellishment, just gravity. The man blinked, searching for logic where there was only consequence. Elijah continued. You thought power looked like a suit, a tone, a color. I just changed the definition. Carla's eyes flicked between them the way a conductor watches the last note linger in the air. Elijah spoke again, quieter this time. When I was 16, my father was turned away from a job site because he didn't look qualified. He went home and built something better. I learned that day. Access isn't given. It's taken with precision. He stood, buttoning his jacket, a small, deliberate act that felt like closing a case file. You don't have to like me, he said. You just have to answer to me. Carla stepped forward. We'll be hosting a membership review next week. Every staff member and partner will reapply. One of the men scoffed. You're dismantling decades of tradition. Elijah turned toward the window, watching the city stretch away. No, he said. I'm disinfecting it. End of quote. Outside, a delivery truck rumbled past, brakes hissing a reminder that the world still moved beyond their entitlement. He turned back to the table. You built a room where certain people didn't belong. I'm building one where arrogance doesn't fit. For a moment, none of them spoke. Finally, one whispered, You're making a mistake. This place is history. Elijah met his gaze. History was written by men like you. I'm just editing the ending. He gathered his papers, nodded once to Carla, and walked out. No one followed. As the door closed behind him, the boardroom felt smaller. The chandelier above the table flickered just once, like it knew the hierarchy beneath it had shifted. Downstairs, guests were already arriving, unaware the ground had changed beneath their feet. The Beaumont still smelled like money, still sounded like jazz. But for the first time in its century-old history, the air felt accountable. Elijah stepped outside into the morning light. Carla joined him, voice low but steady. What now? He glanced back at the doors that had once refused him. Now, he said, we open them. The following night, the story reached the people who mattered most. Not investors, not lawyers, but staff. The doorman, the hostess, the waiters, who'd stood by when it happened. Every one of them had replayed the moment in their minds. The laughter, the stare, the silence that followed. Now, they worked under new management, and the silence felt different, heavy, not with shame, but expectation. At 6:45 p.m., Carla walked through the lobby, clipboard in hand, flanked by two human resources officers. Her heels struck the marble like a metronome of change. Elijah wants every employee present, she said. No uniforms, no barriers, just truth. By 7, they gathered a sea of nervous faces behind the bar, at the reception, near the piano. And then Elijah entered. He didn't walk like an owner. He walked like a man testing gravity. No entourage, no cameras, only presence. The same doorman, the one who had smirked now, stood stiff, eyes down. The hostess who'd questioned his reservation twisted her hands, a cocktail of regret and fear. Elijah stopped at the center of the room. I won't keep you long, he began. I'm not here to humiliate anyone. I've already seen how that feels. A few heads lifted. The pianist froze mid-chord, letting his fingers hover in the air. Elijah's tone stayed calm, measured. This club has survived 100 years because it knew who to serve. The problem is it forgot who built it. The ones who polish the floors, pour the drinks, greet the guests, you're the first faces people see, and the last ones they remember. But last night, that door told a different story. His eyes moved to the doorman. Not angry, steady. What did you see? Elijah asked. The man swallowed. I saw someone I misjudged. Elijah nodded. That's a start. What else? He hesitated, then whispered, I saw others laughing and I didn't stop them. The room was silent. Even the air seemed to pause. Elijah said softly, Silence is comfortable until it costs you something. He turned toward the hostess. And you? She blinked back tears. I followed policy. No, Elijah said. You followed bias. Policy just gave it a name. Her lip trembled. I'm sorry. He nodded. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for awareness, because power doesn't change until people see it clearly. Carla stepped forward. Under new ownership, every staff member will attend a 2-week equity and leadership program. Paid. Mandatory. Anyone who refuses can leave with severance. The room murmured surprise mixed with relief. Elijah continued, I don't fire people for mistakes. I fire people for refusing to grow. He glanced toward the pianist, who sat frozen beside the grand piano. Play, Elijah said simply. The man hesitated, then began a soft tune, the same jazz piece that played the night Elijah was thrown out. Only now, it sounded different. Slower, reflective. Elijah looked around the room one more time. I built companies on profit, but this, he gestured to the space, the people, the sound, this is about repair. He let the music fill the silence, then added, I don't need gratitude. I need accountability, starting with me. Carla's eyes flickered proud, restrained. One of the junior waiters, maybe 20, spoke quietly. Sir, thank you for coming back. Most people would have burned this place down. Elijah smiled faintly. Fire destroys. I prefer renovations. The room exhaled. When he turned to leave, no one looked away this time. They didn't see a billionaire. They saw a mirror one reflecting what they'd almost lost. Outside, the night had cooled, soft rain misting across the pavement. Behind him, the same doors closed gently not to shut him out, but to hold the silence he'd left behind. The next week, the Beaumont reopened under quiet watch. No press release, no ribbon cutting, just new rules printed on cream paper and pinned near the entrance. Membership renewal required. To outsiders, it looked like a simple update. To insiders, it was an earthquake. By dusk, the old guard began to arrive, silk scarves, cufflinks, smiles rehearsed to hide panic. Elijah sat in the corner of the lounge, not at the head table but near the window, where the streetlight spilled across his face. Carla stood beside him, tablet ready, posture razor straight. One by one, the members entered, the same people who had laughed that night. They slowed when they saw him. Some froze. Some turned away. He didn't call them over. He waited. At 7:10, the board arrived minus Jensen, who was now unemployed. A tall woman in pearls broke the silence first. Mr. Cross, this process is unsettling. You can't simply erase our history. Elijah looked up, voice calm as ever. History erases itself when it refuses to evolve. Another member, red-faced, leaned forward. You think you can walk in here and change everything overnight? Elijah's chaza didn't waver. No, I already did. Carla handed the stack of documents across the table. Each of you will reapply under the same conditions as new members. Code of conduct, diversity clause, non-discrimination, compliance. A man scoffed. Diversity clause? This is a private club. Elijah smiled slightly. Private doesn't mean lawless. It means accountable. The room rippled with whispers. One voice rose above the rest, male, sharp, trembling with entitlement. You don't belong here, Cross. You never did. Isfersons. It was Edward Harlan, real estate heir, third-generation member, and self-appointed gatekeeper. He stood, jabbing a finger toward Elijah. You bought the walls, not the people. Elijah didn't move. Then maybe the walls will have better manners. Laughter broke, not the cruel kind, but the nervous kind that follows realization. Carla's voice sliced through it. Mr. Harlan, as of this morning, your membership is pending review for conduct unbecoming. That includes last week's verbal harassment. Edward's face flushed red. You can't. I can, Elijah said quietly, because I own what you thought you controlled. The pianist, uncertain, stopped playing mid-song. The silence stretched, thick as smoke. Elijah stood slowly, his chair barely making a sound. You all built a place designed to keep people like me outside. But here's the irony. Exclusion isn't power. It's fear wearing good tailoring. And if he stepped closer to Edward, not threatening, but towering in composure. You thought wealth was armor. It isn't. It's a mirror. And tonight, it's showing you something you don't like. Carla began reading from her tablet. Effective immediately, any member found engaging in discriminatory or demeaning conduct will have their privileges suspended indefinitely. That includes board positions and property access. A woman whispered, He's serious. Elijah turned to her. Justice doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs structure. He looked back to Edward. You once laughed at me for not fitting your image of membership. I'm not asking for your respect. I'm redesigning the standard. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Edward did a brittle, breaking sound disguised as laughter. You'll never change this place, he said. Elijah's tone didn't rise. I don't have to. I already changed you. Carla placed the final form on the table. Mr. Harlan, your renewal is denied. Please gather your belongings. Gasps spread across the room like a current. Elijah watched Edward's defiance crumble, replaced by something rawer understanding. As security escorted him out, Elijah said quietly, "That's not punishment. That's consequence." He turned back to the others. Anyone else ready to discuss the future? No one moved. Outside, the first thunder rolled above Manhattan, slow, deliberate, prophetic. Inside the Beaumont, the old world had just cracked, and for the first time no one dared laugh. The rain came before midnight, slanting across Fifth Avenue like a curtain of silver needles. Inside the Beaumont, the storm had another shape, quiet defiance, pride unraveling, history dissolving one rule at a time. Elijah sat alone in the manager's office, the same room where Jensen once lorded over staff and scolded waiters for letting the wrong people in. Now, the space smelled different, fresh paint, new light, no arrogance. Carla entered, her hair damp from the rain. She set a folder on the desk. Complaints, questions, and one resignation letter. Guess whose? He didn't look up. Harlan? Filed it himself, said he won't be part of a social experiment. Elijah's tone was quiet, unamused. Good. Experiments lead to progress. Stagnation doesn't. Carla smiled faintly, sitting opposite him. You know, the staff are calling you the Silent Thunder. They said the place feels different now. He glanced out the window. It should. They earned it. For a moment, the only sound was rain tapping against the glass. Carla leaned forward. There's still resistance upstairs. A few of the legacy members are planning to petition for reinstatement. Elijah nodded. They can petition all they want, but if they come back, they'll walk through the same door I did with humility or not at all. She exhaled slowly. You're rebuilding culture. That takes longer than rebuilding walls. I know, he said, but culture starts with memory and they'll remember this. He stood, crossing to the shelf behind him. On it sat a framed black and white photo of the Beaumont's founders, all pale faces and sharp collars. Next to it, a new photograph waited in a simple black frame, the staff smiling, relaxed, equal. The two photos sat side by side, and for the first time, the past didn't look untouchable. A knock at the door. It was the young waiter from the training session, Marcus, barely 21, the one who'd said, "Most people would have burned this place down." He looked nervous. Mr. Cross? Sorry to interrupt. Elijah gestured for him to come in. Go ahead. Marcus held out a small envelope. This came for you. No sender. Elijah opened it. Inside was a note, handwritten in neat cursive. You might own the building, but you'll never belong. No name, no courage, just venom on paper. Carla's jaw tightened. You want me to trace it? He folded the note once, slipped it into his pocket. No need. Some ghosts announce themselves just by knocking. Marcus looked uneasy. Sir, people talk. They say the old members are angry, that you're changing too much too fast. Elijah's voice softened. Change always feels fast to those standing still. He dismissed Marcus with a nod, then turned to Carla. Tomorrow, I'll host a gathering. Not a press event, just everyone who works here. She raised an eyebrow. For what? To remind them what this place really is now, he said. Not a fortress, a reflection. Lightning flashed outside, briefly painting the room in white. For a second, Elijah's reflection merged with the old photo behind him, the past and present, layered like film negatives, one fading, the other developing. Carla said quietly, You know, they won't all thank you. I don't need thanks, he replied. I just need the next generation to stop apologizing for walking through the front door. A roll of thunder followed, distant but certain. He glanced once more toward the rain-smeared window, where the golden crest of the Beaumont glowed faintly across the street. The same symbol that once kept him out now looked almost humble under the storm. Tomorrow, he said, we start calling it what it should have always been. Carla tilted her head. And what's that? Elijah smiled slightly. A place that finally deserves its own light. Outside, the storm kept talking, and this time, the building listened. The next evening, the Beaumont's great hall glowed softer than usual. Chandeliers dimmed, curtains drawn back to let the city breathe in. No tuxedos, no private lists, no velvet ropes. Just the people who worked there. Servers, hosts, housekeepers. The heartbeat of a place that once refused to see them. At exactly 8 p.m., Elijah stepped up to the small stage near the piano. No cameras, no journalists, just the staff and the truth between them. He wasn't dressed for power tonight, no tailored suit, just that same black turtleneck, jeans, and the calm that had become legend. Carla stood near the side, watching. She'd never seen the staff so still. Every eye was fixed on the man they'd once escorted out. Elijah began quietly. When I walked into this building 2 weeks ago, I didn't come as an owner. I came as a reminder. He let the words hang, the kind of pause that doesn't ask for attention but commands it. This club thought it could measure worth by appearance, but appearance fades. Respect should not. A ripple went through the room, soft, electric. He continued, "My father used to tell me, they'll judge you before you speak, so make your silence louder than their noise. That's what I did here. But silence isn't enough anymore. We need sound, honest, uncomfortable, necessary sound." He gestured to the pianist. "Play something you love." The man nodded, started a slow, soulful piece, not jazz this time, but blues, aching and alive. Elijah waited until the melody settled. "You hear that?" he asked. "That's what change sounds like. Familiar but different. It doesn't erase the past, it rearranges it." Someone in the crowd, a young hostess, raised her hand hesitantly. "Mr. Cross, why did you buy this place instead of walking away? You could have built your own." He smiled. "Because walking away lets the problem stay standing. Ownership lets you rebuild the foundation." The room murmured. Carla watched the staff lean forward, faces open, breathing in the kind of truth that doesn't get printed on plaques. Elijah went on. "Tomorrow, the Beaumont reopens not as an exclusive club, but as the Beaumont Collective. Membership won't depend on pedigree, only purpose. The ones who make this place work will own a share of it." Gasps scattered through the room. A bartender whispered, "He's giving us equity?" Elijah nodded. "Real equity. 10% of profits divided among staff annually. Because dignity shouldn't stop at the door." A single clap broke the silence, then another, until the room thundered with applause that didn't sound like celebration, it sounded like release. Somewhere near the back, the doorman, once the face of the club's arrogance, wiped his eyes quickly, pretending it was dust. When the sound faded, Elijah's tone softened. "Justice isn't just about punishment. It's about participation. You can't fix what you exclude yourself from." Carla stepped forward, voice steady but warm. "New training begins Monday. Everyone stays on payroll during transition. This isn't about replacing, it's about rewriting." Elijah nodded to her, then turned back to the crowd. "This building stood for a century on the illusion of class. From now on, it stands for contribution. The Beaumont will no longer ask who you are, only what you bring." The pianist shifted into a brighter melody. Someone laughed, not mockery this time, but disbelief turned into hope. Elijah looked out over the crowd, his gaze steady. "This is what belonging feels like. Not permission, participation." He took a slow breath. "To those who laughed at me, you built my motivation. To those who stood silent, you taught me patience. And to those who believed change was impossible, thank you for the challenge." The room rose to its feet, the sound of clapping echoing like thunder against marble. Elijah didn't bow. He just nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement, not triumph. Outside, through the open doors, Fifth Avenue glittered with rainlight again. But tonight, the Beaumont wasn't reflecting wealth, it was reflecting worth. By sunrise, word had spread beyond the marble walls. Not through tabloids or trending clips Elijah had forbidden publicity, but through whispers among doormen, chauffeurs, and concierges across the city. "The Beaumont changed hands," they said. "The man they threw out runs it now." Some said it was justice. Others said it was impossible. Elijah said nothing. He just kept working. At 10 a.m., the board reconvened one last time. Carla stood beside him, hair tied back, tone sharp with clarity. "Gentlemen and ladies," she began, "the club is solvent, restructured, and under new governance. Those who wish to stay must sign the revised charter by noon." The air was tight, expensive with discomfort. A few glanced at Elijah, waiting for the smile that never came. The pearl-draped woman from before folded her hands. "You've turned our legacy into a lesson." Elijah nodded. "That's what legacy should be. You'll destroy everything this place stood for." He looked at her calm, steady. "If what it stood for excluded people like me, then it deserves to fall." Carla laid out the documents, sleek, simple, unavoidable. "Sign or step aside." A hush followed. One by one, pens scraped against paper reluctant compliance disguised as sophistication. But 3 refused. Edward Harlan was gone, but his allies remained 2 men and 1 woman who'd inherited both money and disdain. The eldest spoke, voice trembling with the pride of a dying era. "You think you can buy belonging, Cross? Money doesn't rewrite history." Elijah leaned forward. "Neither does fear, but it delays progress, and that's over now." The woman across the table hissed. "You don't understand how this world works." He smiled faintly. "I built this world. I just stopped playing by your version of the rules." Carla's tone dropped to business. "Failure to comply will result in forfeiture of all benefits and voting privileges." The older man slammed his pen down. "You can't erase us!" Elijah stood slowly. "I'm not erasing you. I'm documenting the end of your relevance." He gathered the unsigned pages, folded them neatly, and handed them back across the table. "These," he said, "are relics. Keep them. Hang them on your walls. Tell your grandchildren how the world changed while you argued about ink." No one answered. The silence felt different this time, not outrage, not fear. Recognition. Carla broke it with a small cough. "We'll notify legal." Elijah nodded. "Make it clean. No humiliation. Just conclusion." Then he turned to the window. Outside, the city pulsed taxis, rain, movement. The future. On time, as always. Behind him, chairs creaked as people stood to leave. One paused. The pearl-draped woman. "Mr. Cross," she said softly, "for what it's worth, I was wrong." He turned, meeting her gaze without bitterness. "No," he said. "You were honest. You believed what you were taught. Now you know better." She nodded once, almost grateful, and left. When the room was empty, Carla whispered, "You realize you just dismantled a century of tradition in 30 minutes." Elijah's eyes stayed on the rain. "It didn't take 30 minutes, Carla. It took a lifetime of being underestimated." She smiled, not admiration, but respect. "And what do we build next?" He turned toward her. "Something that lasts because it welcomes, not because it excludes." She tucked the signed documents into her bag. "That sounds almost poetic." He half smiled. Justice usually does when it's done quietly. Outside, the rain began again, soft as applause. The golden letters above the entrance, the Beaumont, gleamed under gray skies. Different light, same city, but for the first time, it reflected truth, not privilege. Elijah picked up his coat, glanced once around the boardroom that used to be a battlefield, and said to no one in particular, "Let's see what inclusion looks like when it owns the deed." The days that followed moved quietly, but nothing about them was ordinary. For the first time in the Beaumont's 100-year history, the staff entered through the front door. No service corridor, no back staircase. The building itself seemed to breathe differently, less guarded, more human. Elijah walked the lobby each morning without ceremony, greeting the people who now called the place ours. The old members who'd stayed adjusted slowly, trading superiority for curiosity. Some resisted, most adapted. And in that slow adjustment, the club began to resemble something it had never been before alive. Carla called it the shift. She saw it in the smallest details. The bartender laughing with guests, the pianist mixing gospel into jazz, a housekeeper sipping coffee beside a former board member like equals. "What you did here," she said one afternoon, watching from the mezzanine, "isn't policy. It's rewiring." Elijah didn't respond right away. He was watching the doorman, the same man who'd once barred his entry, now holding the door for a young couple of color, smiling like he finally understood what welcome meant. "Rewiring," Elijah repeated quietly. "Yes. Sometimes the building changes after the people do." By noon, a reporter had arrived at the gate, credentials flashing. "Mr. Cross," she called out, "people say you staged a coup, that this is revenge." Elijah paused, studying her through the glass. "Tell them this," he said. "If justice feels like revenge, maybe the injustice went on too long." She blinked, speechless. He nodded politely and kept walking. No statement, no performance, just proof. Inside, Carla met him with a thin smile. "You know that line will end up everywhere." "I hope so," he said. "Let them quote it until they understand it." The afternoon rolled on. A new sign had been installed in the main hall. The Beaumont Collective founded 1923, divided by reborn 2025. Underneath, a smaller plaque read, "Equity, Access, Dignity." No designer's logo, no donor's name, just values carved into brass. Later, During staff review, Marcus approached Elijah again. "Sir," he said, "people keep asking if you're going to sell this place, now that it's worth more." Elijah smiled, half amused. "Worth more to who?" "To them," Marcus said. "Developers, investors, the kind who want the building, not the message." Elijah looked around at the chandeliers, the marble, the sound of laughter echoing where judgment once lived. "Then they still don't get it," he said. "I didn't buy a building. I bought the right to prove them wrong." Carla stepped forward, tablet in hand. "You know, the members' donations doubled this week, half of them anonymous. Guilt is profitable." Elijah laughed softly. "Maybe, but redemption's better business." Evening came with a warmth the city rarely offered. The staff gathered in the lounge, music drifting through open windows, rain-slick streets shimmering beyond. Elijah watched them, faces unguarded, free. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Then, from across the room, the hostess, the one who once questioned his reservation, approached, nervous but brave. "Mr. Cross," she said, "I wanted to thank you for not firing me that night." He looked at her kindly. "You learned from it. That's the job." She hesitated. "It changed me." He nodded. "Good. Let it." Carla watched the exchange, her expression soft. "You ever think about what your father would say if he saw this?" Elijah turned toward the window, where the city lights blinked like heartbeat monitors. "He'd probably just nod," he said, "and tell me to repaint the door. Every generation gets to choose its color." Downstairs, the doorman held that door open again, this time for a delivery man bringing flowers. A small act, almost invisible but monumental in context. The old Beaumont had built walls. The new one had learned how to let light through. And for the first time since its founding, the building didn't look exclusive. It looked awake. The Beaumont stood quiet under the pale morning light, the kind of stillness that follows storms and signals something permanent has shifted. The rain had washed the brass letters clean. The Beaumont Collective gleamed across Fifth Avenue, not as a symbol of power anymore, but of possibility. Inside, the scent of fresh polish mixed with coffee and conversation. No hierarchy, no hushed corners. Just motion staff setting up for the day, laughter echoing softly through the marble halls that once carried only judgment. Elijah stood in the lobby, hands in his pockets, watching the morning unfold. The pianist, now playing soft gospel chords, looked up and nodded. The doorman smiled as he welcomed a couple carrying backpacks instead of briefcases. The new felt natural. Carla joined him, holding a sleek folder. "Press is still asking for a statement," she said. He shook his head. "Let them ask. They want a quote for the anniversary launch. Something about what this place represents." Elijah smiled faintly. "Then tell them this: it represents what happens when dignity gets the final word." Carla studied him for a moment. "That's very you." "I know," he said. "Short, sharp, true." They moved toward the window, sunlight spilling through the glass. Across the street, a group of teenagers took pictures of the new sign. One of them said, "That's the club that changed." Elijah heard it, smiled quietly. "Good," he murmured. "Let them start stories with that." He turned back to the staff, gathering behind him familiar faces, once tense, now grounded. "Everyone," he called gently. The room stilled. "I don't give speeches," he said, "but I owe you words. This place wasn't reborn because of me. It was reborn because enough of you decided to see what was wrong and stay long enough to fix it." He looked at the faces, the doorman, the hostess, Marcus, the pianist, Carla. "You can rebuild bricks. You can't rebuild integrity. You either live it or you lose it." The pianist began to play again that same blues melody, no longer aching but bright. Elijah continued, "When I was 16, I promised myself I'd never beg to belong. Took me 30 years to realize you don't have to beg when you build the door yourself." A murmur ran through the crowd, quiet agreement, shared relief. Carla wiped at her eye, pretending it was dust. "They'll quote that one too," she whispered. "Let them," Elijah said softly. "Maybe someone will finally understand." He looked up toward the chandelier, once the witness to laughter that mocked him, now reflecting the faces of people who stood proud beneath it. "The Beaumont doesn't need to be exclusive," he said. "It needs to be an example. If a place like this can change, maybe the world can too." Outside, the clouds parted, letting a wide stripe of sunlight cut across the marble floor. The gold in the letters outside flickered like a pulse, alive, renewed. Elijah turned toward the door, coat in hand. Carla called after him. "Where will you go now?" He smiled. "Somewhere someone else thinks I don't belong." She laughed softly. "And what will you do there?" He paused, eyes steady. "Buy it." The room laughed not out of surprise, but recognition. He opened the door, sunlight flooding in, and stepped into the city's rhythm, unbothered, deliberate, timeless. Behind him, the Beaumont Collective thrummed with life, music, voices, equality. The final note hung in the air like truth itself. He didn't record injustice. He corrected it, and the world, at least a small, marble corner of it, was finally better for it.